Hello, Storytimers! It's your favorite Storytimer, Annie! And our best pal, Penguin. And today, we're going to be doing something that I haven't done in a long time. We're going to be reading The Indian in the Cupboard. If you have that book at home, why not go grab it so we can read together? We left off on chapter 3, 30 Scalps, and we left off at the part where Omri was asking the Indian how much people that the Indian scalped. Now, let's get on to it. I'm going to start on page 37. Really? Asked Omri, wishing he had read more. Did you fight? Fight. Little bear, fight. Little bear fight like mountain lion. Take many scalps. Scalps? Omri swallowed. How many? Little bear proudly held up all 10 fingers. Then he closed his fists, opening them again with another lot of 10 and another. I don't believe you killed so many people, said Omri, shocked. Little bear not lie. Great hunter, great fighter. Any white scalps? Omri ventured to ask. Some. French. Not take English scalps. Englishmen friends to Iroquois. Help Indian fight. Eloquent enemy. Omri stared at him. He suddenly wanted to get away. I'll go and get you some meat, he said in a choking voice. He went out of his room, closing the bedroom door behind him. For a moment, he did not move on, but leaned back against the door. He was sweating slightly. This was a bit more than he had bargained for. Not only was his Indian no mere toy come to life, he was a real person, somehow magicked out of the past of over 200 years ago. It occurred to Omri for the first time that this idea of Indians, taken entirely from Western films, had been somehow false. After all, those had all been actors playing Indians, and afterward wiping their war paint off and going home for their dinners, not in teepees but in houses like his. Little Bear is no actor. Omri swallowed hard. 30 scalps! Phew! Of course things were different in those days. Those tribes are always making war on each other, and when you come to think of it, the English and French, whatever they thought they were doing fighting in America, were probably no better killing each other like mad as often as they could. Even now, weren't soldiers doing the same thing? Weren't there wars and battles and terrorism going on all over the place? You couldn't switch on television without seeing news about people killing and being killed. Were 30 scalps, even including some French ones taken hundreds of years ago, so very bad after all? Still, when he tried to imagine Little Bear full size bent over some French soldier holding his hair in one hand and rounding the point of his scalping knife, yuck! Omri pushed away from the door and walked rather unsteadily downstairs. No wonder he had felt, from the first, slightly afraid of his Indian. He asked himself, swallowing repeatedly, and feeling that just the same he might be sick, whether he wouldn't do better to put Little Bear back in the cupboard, lock the door, and turn him back into plastic, knife and all. Down in the kitchen, he ransacked his mother's store cupboard for a tin of meat. He found some corned beef at last and opened it. Sorry for the inconvenience, guys. There's some fireworks going on, because did you know in China, fireworks go on almost every day, not like in America or wherever you live. But I'm probably sure that some of you British folk would love to set off fireworks now and then. Now, where were we? Oh yeah, still in chapter 3. Page 39. I'll start from the beginning. Back in the cupboard, locked the door, and turned him back into plastic, knife and all. Down in the kitchen, he ransacked his mother's store cupboard for a tin of meat. He found some corned beef at last, and opened it with the tin opener on the wall. He dug a chunk out with a teaspoon, put it absently into his own mouth, and stood there chewing it. The Indian hadn't seemed very surprised about being in a giant house in England. He had shown that he was very superstitious, believing in magic and in good and in evil spirits. Perhaps he thought of Omri as, well, some kind of genie or whatever Indians believed in instead. The wonder was that he wasn't more frightened of him then, for genies, or giants, or spirits, or whatever, were always supposed to be very powerful. Omri supposed that if one happened to be the son of an Indian chief, one simply didn't get scared as easily as ordinary people, especially perhaps if one had taken 30 scalps. Maybe Omri ought to tell someone about Little Bear. The trouble was that although grown-ups usually knew what to do, what they did as very seldom was children wanted to be done. What if they took the Indian to, say, some scientist or whoever knew about strange things like that, who would question him and examine him and probably keep him in a laboratory or something of that sort? They would certainly want to take the cupboard away, too, and then Omri wouldn't be able to have any more fun with it at all. Just when his mind was seething with ideas such as putting in plastic bows and arrows and horses and maybe even other little people, well, no, probably that was too risky. Who knew what sort he might land up with? They might start fighting each other, but still, he knew for certain that he didn't want to give up his secret. Not yet, no matter how many Frenchmen had been scalped. Having made his decision for the moment anyway, Omri turned to go upstairs, discovering only halfway up that the tin of corned beef was practically empty. Still, there was a fair-sized bit left in the bottom. It ought to do. Little Bear was nowhere to be seen, but when Omri caught him softly, he ran out from under the bed and stood waving both arms up at Omri. "Bring meat?" "Yes." Omri put it on the miniature plate he cut the night before and placed it before the Indian, who seized it in both hands and began to gnaw at it. "Very good. Soft. Your wife cooked this?" Omri started to laugh. "I haven't got a wife." The Indian stopped and looked at him. "Omri not got wife? Who go corn, grind cook, make the clothes?" "My mother," said Omri, still grinning. "Have you got a wife then?" The Indian looked away. After a moment he said, "No." "Why not?" "Dead," said Little Bear shortly. "Oh." The Indian finished eating in silence and then stood up, wiping his greasy hands on the sides of his trousers. "Now, do magic. Make things for Little Bear." Well, this seems to be the end. Next time, we're going to be figuring out what Little Bear wants Omri to make. Tune in next time for more awesome adventures with Anytime Storytime and all of her wonderful furry friends in the world of China. Goodbye, guys!